Okay, hi everyone. Thank you so very much for joining us. I very much am appreciative of you guys showing up and being on time and coming early. I had so many responses. I'm actually really happy that I was able to ask the question if people want to learn about Keto 101 in our group, because I definitely think there's some questions that come up repeatedly and just some things that definitely could be covered in just like a quick session. So I'm happy to bring my my keto enthusiast, Dr. Jason, with me. I'm going to share my screen, so I'm not going to be able to see anyone anymore. So we will get rolling
Bye.
here. Bye.
Yeah, it's not working.
Hold on. Oh, I have to press share screen. All right, guys. So Keto 101. Who are we? My name is Mandy, and I'm a keto enthusiast, a chronic illness blogger, and a keto wellness advocate. I have my own story, but I'm not going to bore you with that. But for 12 years, I was misdiagnosed. I bounced from doctor to doctor, tried every pill, potion, long-term, like to find a long-term solution for what I now know is arthritis. And recently, with the help of Dr. Jason, I found a ketogenic diet and has literally changed my life. So I do social media marketing, but I actually am making a huge pivot, and I truly and genuinely want to help and coach as many people as I can to help them realize that they don't have to feel bad anymore. So there's that. And our wonderful presenter right now, Dr. Jason Pape. He has 20 years of experience, and he is a functional holistic chiropractor. Basically what he does is he finds the root cause of patients' conditions and takes the necessary steps to help them through chiropractic adjustments, lifestyle modifications. He recommends exercise, diet, and nutritional changes. So Jason, without further ado.
Take it away.
Yes.
All right, like Mandy said, 20 years of experience is kind of scary when I say that number like that. So I don't think I'm that old, but apparently I'm just a holistic doctor, and I specialize in functional medicine as well as a number of other things. But we're using that expertise and stuff like that to talk about it tonight. So ketogenic diet for me has definitely been a pretty big game changer for a lot of things and a lot of my patients in the office. And the more I learn, the more I know that this is, I feel, one of the best ways to really address a lot of health concerns and just be in a healthier state. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, touch on some of these slides are talking about. I'm going to go a little off book, if you will. So feel free to just follow along. But a lot of you may be here for different reasons. Many of you just kind of wanted some Keto 101, and that's kind of what we're going to hit on. And a lot of times there's just people that jump into it and they don't really have enough ammo. And that's why hopefully you're all here so we can give you a little bit more ammunition so you can go out there and feel a little more confident about doing this. So again, a ketogenic diet really is a low carb, high fat diet. So usually high fat, moderate protein, low carb. And we're trying to look for more nutrient dense food. And there's a lot of research behind this. I mean, the ketogenic diet itself has been around for almost 100 years, originally developed to help with seizure disorders and epilepsy back in the early 20s. There's some even research to show back it was down in the 1910s, if you will, in France, originally where it started. It's kind of, come in and out of fate, if you will, vogue over the years as carbohydrates have become more centerpiece for a lot of people's diets, and fat has been vilified. So we're going to talk a little bit how that is the misnomer. All right, so when we talk about ketones, and it lowers blood sugar and insulin levels, and it can shift the body's metabolism away from burning carbs towards burning fat to produce ketones. So we're going to talk about what that is, ketones and ketosis. So think of it this way. When we break down carbohydrates, we make glucose, and we use glucose for fuel. All right? Make ATP, if you will. I'm not getting too sciencey on you. When we break down fats, we'll make fats into ketones, and the body will use ketones for fuel. So ketones are just a much more optimal energy source for us than it is glucose. They don't need insulin to get into the cell. They can cross the blood-brain barrier easily and get into the neurons very easily. So it's a much more efficient, effective fuel source, and it's a much longer and more easily sustained fuel source for the body. And it's actually the more preferred source of energy for the body. However, The body likes what it knows, and the body likes easy. And glucose, when it's plentiful, is easy. And your body, when there's a lot of carbohydrates present, especially we're in a society where we're pretty much easily can get food all the time, our bodies are much more easily put into a state where it's using glucose for energy. And we've become glucose adapted, not keto adapted anymore. Let me look at your notes real quick. So the only way to get into ketosis nowadays really is in general, through food, is one of two ways. You either starve yourself, where your body basically goes through all its sugar stores and then even burns through your protein and then gets into fat burning. We don't want to do that. It's not easy to do. And I don't recommend starving yourself. But at the same time, we also talk about doing a ketogenic diet. And why does a ketogenic diet work? Well, we need to get back to the state that we're natively supposed to be in. And we do that by going high fat, moderate protein, low carb. And when we do that long enough, we will basically burn our own body's carbohydrate source and shift over to fat burning, where our body has to look for something else other than carbohydrates. Kind of starve it of the carbs. The body says, well, we got to go back to our next preferential option, which is fat. We're going to break down the fat to make ketones, use it for energy. The thing is, it takes some time and some work. And that's what we're going to get into here in a minute. So what I really want to talk briefly, just talk about what we are naturally. So we are hunter-gatherers, and hunter-gatherers ate fish, fowl, beef, pork, fruits and vegetables, some nuts and seeds. And they did have periods of intermittent fasting because they didn't always have food available. And this food they had was seasonal and it was local to where they were. Not things that you see us have anymore, right? No one's really going without food usually. Fish, fowl, beef, protein, and fruits and vegetables not our main source. There's a lot of carbohydrates. You didn't hear me mention carbs at all in there. A little bit of nuts and seeds is kind of all it was for the carbs usually back in the day for our hunter-gatherers, such as our fruits and vegetables. So our bodies were in a ketogenic state. Most hunter-gatherers, 70% of the time, were in ketosis and fat burning. And over the last couple hundred years, especially the last 50, 60 years, carbohydrates have become so plentiful that our bodies have just become used to the easy. We adapt, and our bodies have adapted to be glucose burners instead of ketone burners. And the only way to really get you back there nowadays is by a ketogenic diet, forcing the body to shift back. But because we've been doing this for so long, it's a hard road sometimes, and it takes time. You have to sustain it because your body will try to go back to what it knows. So when we're talking here about ketosis, is it's just another metabolic state. It's a healthy metabolic state when done properly. All right, and like I said, it's a preferred fuel source. And again, you need to limit your carbohydrates to really get there. Usually people with 50 grams or less a day of carbs, 20 to 30 is usually what's more recommended for traditional ketogenic diets. You can go to the next slide, Mandy.
Okay. Hey, Jason, do you think you can slow down just a little bit?
Oh, I'm sorry. If anyone's saying I'm talking too fast, I will slow down.
No, it's okay. I know you get all keto.
I don't realize how fast I'm going. It sounds slow. It sounds normal speed in my head.
Yeah.
So I will slow down a little bit.
It's okay. You're the expert, so you get all passionate about it. So
I do, and I know what I know, but I don't know what you don't know.
Just for us newbies.
So if anyone feels like I covered something really quick that they need me to cover really quick again, go back over, just drop a note in the chat box if something you want me to recover real quick. Well, slower if that's the case. Otherwise, I'll keep rolling ahead.
Can you still see my screen if I go like that?
I see a heart that you drew on the corner there.
Okay, I don't know what that is. So hold on 1 second.
Sorry, guys. We're just testing some stuff out here. So, well, I'll keep talking a little bit because I don't think we don't necessarily need this slide right now. Okay. So why does this kind of diet work? Well, again, we're putting ourselves back into a state where we're burning fat preferentially for fuel. So if we're burning fat preferentially for fuel, we're going to lose fat, right? Now, if you eat fat, and if you're going to eat more fat, your body will kind of continue to preferentially burn fat. So some people think, well, I don't have much weight to lose, or I don't really need to lose any weight. Why would I do a ketogenic diet? Well, when you do a ketogenic diet, you are going to eat fat, right? And if you're eating higher fat, your body's going to use that for fuel. So it's not like you're going to waste away to nothing if you go to a ketogenic diet and you're relatively lean. And the nice thing too is once you get keto adapted, it actually can be very protective effects to the muscle mass you have, as well as the fact that you can actually build more muscle too, more easily in that state. And in fact, you won't need as many calories and you won't need as many protein grams per day to maintain your mass, because by going through fat as a main source of energy, you're actually a little bit protective to your muscles. Pretty impressive. So it has been proven to burn fat. It can eliminate sugar cravings. So let's talk about that, right? So if you have a pic, if you can see my screen, awesome. If not, just I'll tell you what I'm doing. When you eat carbs and you make glucose, you get a spike in energy, and then you get a crash after about 2 hours when insulin kicks in and shuttles all that sugar into the cell. And then you'll get hungry, you'll eat again, and you'll crash, and eat again, and you'll crash. And that's not a great way to do. You're chasing that curve all day long. Your body's craving food or sugars specifically. So now when you move into a more ketogenic based state where you're burning fat now for fuel, your body gets that it comes up slowly, and then it kind of stays in that state for a while, and it maybe slowly go down after time, but you can stay up in that fat burning state for all day long. You'll have a nice sustained energy. So you don't get these crashes throughout the day. You don't get that mid-afternoon drop. You're not as hungry. A lot of times you need less calories to maintain, because your body's just not eating because it thinks it needs food, because it's not like in a sugar starved state. And again, we're much more able to process sugars early in the day than we are later in the day. So once our muscles fill up with sugar early in the day, all that extra sugar just goes to fat. So eating sugar is really just going to, in the long run, will actually make you gain more weight if you're eating a lot of carbohydrates. Now, again, you have a couple of choices when you do any kind of dieting. You could go, low carb, low fat, or you can go high fat, low carb. But you don't want to go high fat, high carb. You will gain weight, and it will not be good. All right. So there's a lot of therapeutic effects that ketogenic diets do have on the body in the way of ketones specifically. So we've mentioned a few of them already, right? You're going to have better energy, more sustained energy. You're going to have fat loss, muscle protection, right? You're going to have better sleep. You're going to have, a lot of times it does help with the brain. So there's a lot of studies of the ketogenic diet and the neuroprotective effects of it. So if you look at Dr. Mary Newport's research, she talks about how it can help with preventing Alzheimer's or reversing some things with Alzheimer's. Again, we're not making any claims, we're not going to say we're sitting here, we're curing, treating whatever medical conditions with the ketogenic diet. But that being said, people have used these kind of diets to help people with a lot of issues. Ketogenic diets have become much more in vogue again in treating cancer, especially intermittent fasting with a low-calorie ketogenic diet. And again, cancer is a fermenter, and it thrives on sugar. If you eliminate its fuel source and change that fuel source, a lot of times that can make a change in, starving that cancer cell. So those are some of the therapeutic benefits. A lot of people notice a lot less brain fog, a lot better mental acuity, focus, concentration when they're doing a ketogenic diet, because it's a preferential fuel for the brain, for the neurons. And again, if you're type 2 diabetic, which means you're not getting the your cells are not responding to insulin properly, so it's not getting the sugar into the cells. Ketones don't need insulin to get in the cell. So it can actually be transported in on its own, and you can actually get better energy source, especially in your brain, which is very important for needing fuel, because your neurons need two things. It needs fuel and activation. So if you can't get good fuel in because you're type 2 diabetic and your cells are not responding to insulin, which means they don't get the sugar in, those neurons don't function well or die. So we want to get the ketones. We don't have that problem. So again, ketogenic diet, very beneficial for the body in general. Plus, ketones can have a signaling effect on cells to make them more receptive to insulin. So it can help reverse some of those trends that people are having with a type 2 diabetic. And the last thing I'll mention right now is that ketones in general have been shown through studies that they can actually be a signaling molecule in the brain and in the body, rather, to lower inflammation. So it can actually lower inflammation in the body. And Mandy can attest to for her with her chronic arthritic issues, how lowering inflammation made a big difference for her.
Yep.
So on the next slide.
What are we supposed to eat to get into ketosis?
So how do we do it? Right. Thank you. So what do we eat? Well, we're going to eat higher fat, moderate protein, lower carb. We'll break down those percentages in a little bit. So what should we eat though? So it's hard. I will admit this is a hard diet to do if you're vegetarian or vegan, but there's ways around that. But so meat is a big one. We have a bunch of listing of red meat, steak, ham, sausage, bacon, chicken, turkey, and fatty fish such as salmon, trout, tuna, mackerel. So think about that. We want to be eating meat and fish, fowl, beef, and pork sources, preferably fattier versions. Now, that being said, not all fat is created equal. There's good fats and there's bad fats. And the sources of your food are going to determine that. So when we talk about fatty fish specifically, usually those are more your cold water fish. Your salmon, your tuna are definitely a cold water fish. So they have a lot of those good, healthy omega-3 fats. Now, we want to make sure that we get those from wild sources. We do not want farm-raised salmon. Farm-raised salmon are fed corn, which then make corn oil, excuse me, that's the kind of fats that get omega-6, which are inflammatory fats. I don't know about you, but I've never seen a salmon in nature get out of the water, walk up to a stalk of corn, rip it down, shuck it, and eat it. It just doesn't happen. Salmon are meant to eat these tiny little crustaceans that actually turn them red, almost like these little shrimp that turn them pink. That's why they have pink color. Farm-raised salmon does not pink. They actually have to give it a dye to make it that color. So everyone want to run out and get some from farm-raised salmon, right? So we want wild fish whenever we can because it's a clean source, cleaner. And be careful with your tuna and even your mackerel a little bit, striped bass, things like that, because you can get a little bit of mercury issues if you eat a lot of it. When it comes to your meat, when it comes to red meat, and this will actually apply to your butter and cream, we want to look at grass-fed, free-range sources, okay? And we want them fattier cuts of meat. So again, we want fat, right? We want good fat. And now a couple things. Remember, fat is a place we store toxins. So if you're going to eat a cow that is fed corn, again, not good fats, that is loaded with antibiotics and growth hormone and everything like that, that's going to negatively impact their fat stores, as well as genetically modified food sources. All those kind of things can change that protein. We don't want that. So if we're going to do this, we want to do this the right way, right? So we want to be as clean as we can. Organic in this, at least it's for now in this country, is automatically has to be GMO, non-GMO rather. So again, we want those grass-fed sources, which is the natural thing for for meat rather. Fish. Again, fish don't eat grass either. So as well as we want to make sure they're not loaded with other things in them like antibiotics and hormones and things like that. Same thing when it comes. What's that?
Question,
what's the question?
Okay, so what would you, if you can't afford like organic and that kind of thing? Because I know for me, just starting out and stuff like that, it's like kind of hard. What are like primary staples that people should, focus on to be compliant with keto?
When it comes to the meats, it's kind of tough. I'd prefer you stick to the chickens than the red meat, because red meat, they still like chicken and even some pork. They're not going to usually give them antibiotics and growth hormone, so you can avoid that. You can get grass-fed meats that are not organic. They're still a little more expensive, but not usually as expensive. Again, do what you have to do to fit your lifestyle. I'm not saying but don't go to McDonald's and grab a burger.
Yep.
Lamb is fine too. I just didn't happen to mention lamb there, Trevor. Thank you. But yeah, any kind of meat source is fine. Lamb, goat, sheep. If you eat elk or bear, go right ahead. Just try to make sure it's free range bear.
They're
Might be
asking
muted.
really stupid
Sorry,
questions.
that was my fault. I'm so sorry, guys.
All right, I'm unmuted now.
Okay.
So I don't know if you heard last, but lamb is good. Bacon, if you're going to go with bacon or things like that, or even ham, let's try to stick to the nitrite-free, uncured versions. Again, better options. And if you're going to get chicken, turkey, stick to the fattier cuts, like a chicken thigh. Again, so can you still go? Have to be organic when you do these kind of things. I just recommend it because I feel it's just a healthier way to be. Eggs, again, we want to try to go for either omega-3 eggs or cage-free organic eggs if we can. Again, eggs, don't worry about the yolk and don't listen to all that garbage about cholesterol from the yolk being bad for you. It's definitely been disproven as be that's not really how cholesterol goes up. And you want to have the whole egg because the yolk and the white together help prevent any of that cholesterol becoming an issue for you.
Okay, so now what don't we eat?
All right, let me finish this list real quick.
Sorry.
So cheese, again, if you want to try to stay away from dairy, I'm personally dairy free, so I try to stick to goat or sheep's milk if I'm going to use it. Nuts and seeds are good, just be careful. Some of them do have a decent amount of sugar, carbs, so you want to be careful how much you eat of those, but just a nice little list there, and there's a lot of good fats in some of those seeds you mentioned. Healthy oils, great list right there. EVOO, coconut oil, avocado oil. Try to go with extra virgin versions of all those. Avocados are great. Low carb veggies. So again, if you stick to green veggies, you're traditionally going with lower carbs. And then condiments, even some fruit is considered some low glycemic index fruit. And again, some condiments, obviously stay away from ketchup and things like that are high in sugar. And if you're going to use spices, try not to use combo spices or things like that have rubs, because a lot of them do have sugar on it. We'll talk about bulletproof coffee in just a little bit, Jamie, when I get to some other things we can do to help you get up into there. So what can I eat? We want to stay away from carbs, right? Sugary foods, especially things that are more easily converted to glucose. So things that are high in sugar, all right? grains or starches, especially when we're talking, even though they may be more complex carbs, we want to stay away from them as much as we can with that kind of diet. We'll talk about that in a minute. We talk about some fruits are okay. Beans or legumes are getting, there's some fats in there, but there's also some, in protein, there's also some decent amount of carbs. Root vegetables, tubers, usually pretty starchy. When you get into low fat products, again, we want fat. That's a problem. When you start getting low fat, they start increasing carbohydrates for the flavor, so there's more sugars. We'll go into Atkins diet in a little bit. Unhealthy fats, again, processed oils, soybean oil, mayo's a little bit soy. You can get, now there's good versions of mayo, like ones that are avocado A's or some that are olive oil based. Those are some options. Sesame oil is kind of in between. So, I would go too crazy with sesame oil because sesame oil technically is inflammatory, but sesamin in sesame oil is anti-inflammatory. So, alcohol, again, it's carbs. It's going to put you out of ketosis. Sugar-free food, diet foods we got to be careful with. Some sugar alcohols like erythritol really won't impact your sugar panel. Maltitol is not really a great one to be using because it does impact some sugar. We'll talk a little bit about net carbs in just a little bit. So how do I get into ketosis? Like we said before, high fat, moderate protein, low carb, trying to keep yourself between 20 and 50 net grams of carbs per day. We'll talk about net versus regular because you want to start forcing the body into fat burning. All right. Coconut oil is a great source of what's called MCT oils, which is easily converted by the body into ketones. So it's like one step away from a ketone. So eating coconut oil is good. Now, eating a ton of coconut oil, don't eat 10 tablespoons a day. It's going to go through you. Bulletproof coffee, and Bulletproof is based on using MCT oil derived from coconut oil traditionally and some other sources, and then used like that. Now, some people will put those kind of things in their coffee, like coconut oil, or they'll use butter or grass-fed butter and put that in their coffee. That's kind of what your Bulletproof coffee would be. There's other companies that make things that can be put in coffee as well to help your body get into ketosis as well. Exercise is great too. Some people can increase their carbs a little bit during exercise. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But what we found is some people worry about exercise causing a higher expenditure of carbohydrates or need for carbohydrates. And yes, maybe in the beginning that's a problem. You may get some of those dips. We'll talk about the keto flu in a minute. But when you become keto adapted, you're a much different athlete. You go further, faster, stronger, longer. Your body uses about 36% less oxygen in a ketogenic state than it will with using glucose as a fat burner. As an energy source, what that means is that you can do more with less with ketones in your body as your main source of energy versus glucose. So a lot of ultra marathoners and triathletes and people like that, Ironmen, are starting to use a lot more of the ketogenic lifestyle to get a better result and an easier thing. They're not constantly having to carb load or carb replace after it because their body is building fat much more optimally. They don't need as much. We're going to talk about fat intake being at least, you're welcome, Trevor, 60% of calories from fat. We're going to talk, I usually go a little bit, I try to push people a little bit higher with that, but sometimes we want to titrate up if it's a little tough for you. All right, so we're going to increase fat intake. We can talk about intermittent fasting. Again, hunter-gatherers. What's the matter, Mandy?
Nope, go ahead. Sorry.
So hunter-gatherers, again, didn't always have food. So there were times of fasting. And so there are things where you can do intermittent fasting where instead of just doing standard keto, you're doing the ketogenic diet, but you're only eating for like a window of time throughout the day from like 11 a.m. to like 6 p.m. And that's the only time you eat. And you get all your calories and everything in then. And sometimes that can even be helpful in just kickstarting or going a little further faster with the ketogenic diet. We want to increase our protein, but we don't have to go too crazy. Again, once you're keto adapted, your body will protect its protein. Now understand, protein is a different source for energy if it needs it. So if the body breaks down protein into energy, it's going to do so. Most protein will go into making glucose. Some will go into ketones, like leucine and lysine are two really good ketogenic amino acids, but most amino acids will break down, which is protein when you break them down, will break down into carbohydrate, into glucose. So remember that. So we'll talk about powdered ketones just a little bit. It's actually on this page. Don't worry, I will get right to that. So understand that sometimes when people are doing ketogenic diet and they're working hard at this and yet they're not getting where they need to go, we may have to lower their protein. Sometimes it's they're too much protein because their body still wants that glucose. It's breaking down protein. We don't want that. So it can be a little bit of a game for you as we go through. Now, some people talk about testing their ketones, and this is somewhat accurate depending on how you do it. So there's 3 ways you can test ketones: blood glucose, a blood monitor, a blood stick, a keto stick that we pee on, your urine, or for a breath analysis. Mandy, do me a favor, mute everyone out, and then I'll unmute myself.
Sure. Sorry about that, guys. I think when people join,
Should join them muted.
yeah, go ahead. You have to unmute yourself.
Just we had some background noise, so I apologize. So, breath analysis, it just basically it's green or red. It's like you breathe, you blow into this thing, and it tells you you're in ketosis, you're not in ketosis. So, not bad, but not very accurate in the way of telling millimoles and things like that. Now, ketone strips that you pee on, they are good early on. Later on, they will not be very accurate, and here's why. If your body's not used to burning ketones, as you get into ketosis, you will spill, meaning your body will kind of like not use all the ketones present because it's still used to burning sugar. Either there's too much sugar still in the body or the body is just not adapted yet. So you will spill into your urine. Your body filters them out. So when you pee on the stick, it will show that you're in ketosis. It goes to purple. In the beginning, that means your body is getting there and your body's starting to learn how to use it. But after 1 or 2 months, it's not really effective because now your body becomes efficient at burning ketones. Especially after you exercise or if your body's got a lot of inflammation and is using the ketones for other things, it's really going to utilize them. So you're not going to pee purple, if you will. Literally, you don't pee purple, the stick turns purple. So understand that early on, it's effective to a point in measuring your ketone levels, but after a while, it's not going to show you. You're going to pee on it and go, why am I not in ketosis anymore? I've been doing this 3 months. Well, the problem is not, peeing purple would be scary, Trevor. So that's a different problem. Run to your doctor, please. Don't walk. So understand that the keto sticks are not telling you you're not in ketosis anymore, that it's not effective anymore. It means your body's pretty much in ketosis. The best way to tell is a blood meter. Blood meters really aren't expensive, about $40. It's the strips that go in them that get expensive and pricey. They can go anywhere from $2 to like $6. Yeah, go full screen, Mandy.
Sure.
Sorry about that, huh? So understand that they are much more accurate. And when you do a blood ketone meter, it will tell you what your blood levels of ketones are looking like. And depending on, again, different times of day, that number may shift. But that's probably the best way to tell where you're at. All right. So we prefer blood ketone meter, but understand that it gets a little pricey. You'll kind of know at some point after a while where you are. You'll know how you feel. You'll know your food, and you'll know what's going on with your body to go, I feel pretty good. If you have a shift in the other way, maybe because your body's looking for some of those things. So I know when you guys asked about powder ketones and exogenous ketones, so I'm going to touch on that here. So there are shortcuts in the ketogenic diet because with ketosis and ketogenic diet, it takes weeks to months to get into ketosis for people. And some people even have even if they're really strict, have a hard time getting there. And then once you are there, should you have carbs, it may kick you out and it may take you a few days to weeks to even get back. So what exogenous ketones do is that by giving someone a drink that has ketones in it, the body sees ketones in the blood, it uses those ketones for energy, and it assumes that it's already burning fat to be in ketosis, and it kicks your body in ketosis, and the good product will put you in ketosis in 30 to 60 minutes. And you can actually measure this at the beginning, again, with keto sticks or with even a blood meter. And sometimes, depending on the product, you can definitely raise your millimoles much higher than you would even by your own ketogenic diet. Now, the nice thing about exogenous ketones is it gives you the ability to cheat a little bit on your ketogenic diet and get right back into ketosis. It allows you to be a little more forgiving with carbs if you have a bad day. Like, unfortunately, the ketogenic diet, you have a bad day and you're not that keto adapted, it may take you some real time to get back. Ketones can be something that a quick fix to put you right back into ketosis. It can actually amplify your results. So Dr. Dom D'Agostino is really kind of pioneered that research of exogenous ketone uses using BHB, which is beta hydroxybutyrate, which is the main ketone your body uses as an energy source in the body. Again, using MCT oil, things like that, bulletproof coffee is like one step behind that. It'll kind of help your body make its own ketones. But it seems like the work we've seen with exogenous ketones has been pretty effective. And again, really quick, I'll go over, some people may worry about what's considered like ketoacidosis. People are scared, don't do a ketogenic diet, it's dangerous. Okay. Very quickly, I'll touch on that. When you have diabetes, specifically, usually type 1 more than anything, you sometimes may have uncontrolled diabetes, meaning your body is not making or getting insulin effective. Either the body's not making insulin, the sugar's not getting in the cell, or it's not insulin sensitive and it's not getting in the cell. So what happens is you have a huge flood of sugar in the blood, which is not good. The body, in a crisis mode, dumps a ton of fat into metabolism and breaks it down so fast that your body gets overloaded with ketones and the levels go really high, way too high. we're talking 20 or plenty twice millimoles. You're not getting that through a ketogenic diet. You're not getting that through exogenous ketone use. You're only going to get a couple millimoles, maybe up to 5 if you're lucky with ketogenic diet and exogenous ketones. So that's not going to happen you're not going to get a DKA here. You're not going to get there even with taking an exogenous ketone source unless you literally like ate like 200, 300 servings all at once, didn't pee or poop or drink any water. And no one's going to do that. So macros. A lot of people like to talk about macros and tracking them. So right here in this little graphic, you talk about 65% fat, 25% protein, 10% carbs. That's pretty good. I like to go a little higher. I like it at 75 to 80% fat, 5% carbs and about 10 to 15, 15, 20% of protein is kind of where we like to go with more of that. But again, you work with what works for you. There are ways to calculate your quote unquote macros, how many grams of each you'll need per day based on your weight and your activity levels. So she mentioned one right here. What's that?
No, I think it's when late people come in. I'm just going to mute and then go ahead and unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay.
You're all good.
Okay. So understand that there's a couple other places you can go to find keto calculators. You can go online and anywhere and just find, how do I do my macros for a ketogenic diet? And there's tons of links. She has one good one right there. I have a couple I can list you too that I pulled out earlier to show you.
I can send them in an email.
Yeah, if you really want to hit Mandy up for an email or myself, and we'll get you some links. Keto calculator is a bunch of them. Rule.me/keto-calculator is another one. There's ways you can actually calculate it yourself, but that's a lot of work. So some people want to ask, well, isn't an Atkins diet, isn't a South Beach diet, isn't that ketogenic? Well, yeah, they are. The difference is with Atkins and keto, after the first 2-week phase, you're not doing a strict ketogenic diet anymore. You're actually bringing your carbs up slowly. I'm not a big fan of doing that because, again, not many people get keto adapted in 2 weeks. And I find that, especially even though you bring in complex carbs, your body's still going to break that into sugar. And if your body's not in ketosis on a regular basis and is not keto adapted yet, you're just going to start shifting back to a glucose burner. So while Atkins is good and South Beach is good, I just think that sometimes phase 2 may be too early to start adding those kind of things in. One last thing I'll mention to you is this freebie time. So some research has shown too, if you do a lot of exercise, that if you have some carbs within that first hour of finishing your exercise, that your body will utilize those through insulin it does release naturally through exercise, and it won't mess up your keto. So what that means is when your body is burning, you still have some sugar in your body. Your body, when you're exercising, will burn some of that, and it forces the body, and the glucagon gets released, and the body starts dropping some insulin into the bloodstream. So if you have some carbs, it'll get shuttled into the cell, and you won't blow out your ketogenic diet. But I wouldn't do that until you're a little bit further along in your dieting and you're a little bit more experienced ketoer. But you can use that. So here's some side effects. So keto flu. Sometimes, again, people get headache, lethargy, nausea, confusion, brain fog, irritability. That's because you're shifting. You're shifting from a carb burner to a fat burner, and in between, your body is kind of like starved of carbs. That you may need to eat a little bit of carbs here and there, like bring up your carbs one day for a few days, and a day, and then bring it back down to help you get you through that. Sometimes things like exogenous ketones or even the MCT can help you get through that by forcing your body to get the ketosis going a little bit faster. Sometimes you can get some cramping again. Keep your water up. It's very important. Again, when you're burning fat, your body's letting out toxins. The solution to pollution is dilution. Meaning your body's going to want to use water to dilute toxins that are coming out as fat cells. And if you don't have enough water coming in, you'll kind of, retain water. And that can also affect your electrolytes and cause you a little bit of cramping. Obviously, you're a little bit less tolerant to alcohol because, again, you're not metabolizing sugar the same way. They talk about bad breath. It's more of a fruity breath because your body is making ketones, and acetone is a ketone, and that comes out in your breath and has a kind of a fruityish smell. Constipation, again, you need higher fat and protein, less carbohydrates, which may slow down your bowel a little bit. Definitely keep your water up because, again, if your body is dehydrated, it's looking for water, it will take it from the bowel. Occasionally, if you're too constipated, you may want to, we can always bring a little extra dietary fiber. There's some that don't really impact your sugar paddle much. Smooth move tea occasionally is something you do, but usually most people are pretty okay. Electrolytes, hydrate, more fat, and sleep. And stuff we talked about. So you can take electrolytes, like an electrolyte powder that's low in carbs. I use some from one Designs for Health. There's a company called Nun, N-U-U-N, that has some good ones. Coconut water is a good source of electrolytes, but it's also a good source of sugar. So I wouldn't recommend that. Pink Himalayan sea salt is not just salt. It's got all the different minerals in it. So it's always a good thing you can add into your food. Sleep is important for everything. Again, your sleep usually improves on a ketogenic diet, but your body heals when you sleep. And if you're not sleeping, you're not going to heal. So let's get the sleep up. So what can we supplement? We mentioned NCT oil, adding to your drinks, or even buttery, butter, things like that. Grass-fed butter will help your body make its own ketones. I just mentioned the pink Himalayan sea salt. Some people need some magnesium or even a little bit other electrolyte drinks on their stuff. Caffeine can help because it does boost up your metabolism. We try not to go with caffeine too much because it does it's a stimulant. You don't like stimulants, although it does help facilitate the ketones across the blood-brain barrier. Exogenous ketone supplementation, like we talked about before, definitely helps make this a little easier. It can definitely supercharge your ketogenic diet and get you a little bit further faster, and also be a little more forgiving. And creatine is great for just building muscle. And I found that when you take creatine plus ketones, especially exogenous ketones, you can make a big difference in the gym in the way of improving recovery as well as improved performance. I'm not a big fan of dairy, but whey protein is another way to get some good branched chain aminos that your body can use, including leucine, which can break down the ketones. So if you're still keto curious,
Yes, guys.
Get a hold of us. Go ahead, Mandy.
It's okay. So basically, I would love to talk with whoever wants to learn more or go more in depth with this kind of stuff. So I have a calendar that's available. You guys can write that down. I'm gonna send the slides over to you guys so you'll be able to have access to that. Or you are able to email me at mandy@blissinhealth.com. And then if you would like to speak directly to Dr. Jason, you can email him at therealdrketone@gmail.com. I'm here as always for a resource for you guys. Like I said, I had a incredible experience with this diet, and I get a little emotional, but it's literally changed my life. I have a whole incredible story. So if you ever want to ask me about that, feel free to email me. But yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy experience. So I just genuinely want to help people. So definitely take me up on that.
And real quick, Trevor had a question there about adding supplemental protein. Yeah, protein can be an issue if you're getting too much compared to your in your macros. If you're getting again, high protein, moderate carb, high fat, moderate carb. I can't speak. High fat, moderate protein, low carb. If you're going too high with your protein because you're supplementing more of it, it could definitely affect. But again, you gotta play with what works for you. Everyone's a little bit different. We'll take a few more minutes for questions. Anyone have any other questions off the top of their head that they want to ask? If you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, or just send it in the chat.
Yeah, if you guys want to pop it in the chat, I can ask Dr. J, or you guys can
about a few more minutes. We can
unmute yourself
before we're going to say goodbye. And just so you know, again, if you have more questions about any of these things you want to know more about, even exogenous ketones and what we might recommend, feel free to hit us up with a question and we'll do help them. No stevia. No, stevia is fine. Stevia won't impact your sugar panel. Real quick, net carbs. You can go with net carbs, meaning you subtract out the sugar. And I'll answer your thyroid question in just a second. But you can basically you take the kilocarb, you subtract out the fiber, and you get your sugar. That's usually, you can use net carbs for 20 grams, but sometimes that may not work for people, which means go to total carbs. And last but not least, glycemic index is a way to kind of tell how much sugar something has. And again, 0 means it has no sugar impact, like steak has 0, but glucose is 100. All right. The problem is they're all dose. It's not a dose dependent thing. So it's basically about X amount of grams of everything we're talking about. So no one's going to need score from 0 to 10, 0 to 20 rather, and anything under 10 is usually pretty good. So look for glycemic load more than glycemic index. So just some little things. What's your question, Trevor, about chiropractic?
Well, this isn't really related to keto, but so my question is, I've had 2 laminectomies, and I went to a chiropractor about a year ago, and he wouldn't adjust me.
What have you had done to you? I'm sorry.
2 laminectomies.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the type of treatment. I have no problem treating someone like that. I usually call them activator, so I don't have to worry about. I would treat you no problem. Maybe look for a doctor who uses activator and go to activator.com. And you can find someone in your area. I'm not sure where you live, but I'm out here in Long Island in New York. But
Nebraska.
Yeah, so if you can find an activator doctor, real quick, we can help that. Someone just asked a question about Atkins diet products. I'm not a fan of a lot of those things. I mean, once Atkins died, you saw a ton of stuff come out with his name on it, and it just kind of diluted the whole program. Look at the breakdown of what the macros are in the food. If they're high fat, moderate protein, low carb, you can probably use them. I just find that a lot of these companies, Quest is another company, makes a keto line that's just a ton of, I'm just going to say it, a ton of garbage in their product. It may meet the criteria of a ketogenic diet, but just the ingredients, and it's just horrible. So I try to keep people as clean as possible with their food. And I saw another question. I missed it. Maybe in the chat box there.
Jamie wants to know, so is fat a target? And then I also have a couple questions just quickly on, so I'm going to
What was the target?
So fat is the target. So basically, Jamie wants to know, she asked me before this webinar, she's been told that protein's a target and fat's a limit. And then she gets told that if she ups her fat, she'll be able to trigger her weight loss. She's just frustrated. She doesn't understand like what is going on because she's never been over 20 grams and she just doesn't get it.
If you have too much protein compared to your fat, what may be happening again is your body's burning the protein to make glucose. It's finding a different way of making glucose for a source. So you may want to just make sure, I don't know what your macros are, but I would maybe try to go higher fat. If you're having a lot of trouble with it, honestly, for someone like you, using MCT and really exogenous ketones may be the best thing to kickstart you. I have had some people that until they started using exogenous ketones, no matter what they did, their body just was so resistant to going ketogenic that it needed that push. 25, 91, 44. So yeah, I mean, numbers look pretty good. How much? I'm not going to ask your weight right now. You may want to drop your protein down to about 60 grams and see what happens.
And then I'm going to share. Juanita, you can just send me an email. We didn't want to make this about exogenous ketones.
Yeah, I don't want to. Listen, we have one that we prefer, and I don't want to say we're making sales pitches all day, but
we're just not about that.
Let us know.
We want to help you.
Right. We don't want people to say, "Oh, well, they were just trying to sell me something." So that's not really what we're trying to do here. We do have ones that we prefer, that we use, and we will be more than happy to give you information and links about that specifically and why we prefer those.
Yeah, just shoot us an email. And then I'm going to share my screen. There were some questions that I think Trevor had written in and a bunch of other people. So if you want to just tackle these.
So I'll tackle them quick. I mentioned them earlier. It's important to track caloric intake. Again, I'm not a big calorie guy. I think that, yes, you have to take some calories into account here, but it's about macros. It's about grams. So if you're eating the right way, I mean, I'm not saying eating thousands and thousands of calories, but calories are not really important. I wouldn't go super restrictive with calories. Calorie restricted diets don't work. They work in the short term, but they don't work in the long term. If you calorie restrict too much, you can even stop your weight loss. We're not a calorimeter. We're not calories in, calories out. That's not how we work. And calorie restricting diets is really just old school stuff. It just doesn't really prove out in the real world. Can always be food consumed threshold, not breach. Again, go with low glycemic or low glycemic load foods, fruits, and trying to stay more to the berries, stay more to certain there's lists you can find online easily with giving the breakdown. So just try to have a little bit, not a lot. Mm-hmm. Again, we mentioned if you're going really low calorie, weight loss can stall. But with ketogenic diet, with intermittent fasting and low calorie, lower, you can be fine. You just got to make sure you're hitting your percentages and eating enough to sustain. Don't starve yourself. You're not going to be as hungry on this anyway. I mentioned about total and net carbs before. Again, net carbs is what we try to start with. But again, if that's not working, we got to go to total carbs. Sugar alcohols, again, depending on the sugar alcohol, are not so bad. Erythritol is pretty good. Xylitol, you just want to be careful because it is toxic to dogs. Maltitol is not good. Does have a glycemic load. I would stick to more of erythritol. Can type 1 diabetics do ketogenic? Yes, but definitely consult with your doctor, and you have to closely monitor your ketones. Again, the good thing is you're supposed to be having a lot less sugar anyway, so you're kind of sort of doing a ketogenic diet anyway. You just don't want to force yourself so far the other way that you go into ketoacidosis, but traditionally, if you're being good with your sugar and your insulin, it's not going to be a problem. Benefits of keto athletic performance, I think we talked about that. It's protein. We talked about the protein target, fat's a limit. Yeah. I would probably, like I said before, I'd probably bring it down to maybe 60 grams and see how you do, because I can't imagine that again, about 0.7 to 0.85 times your body weight, or actually your net body weight, if you take out the fat, is what you should be looking for to maintain your protein at this level. So unless there's any other questions, again, if you want to learn more about exogenous ketones, feel free to message us. We'll get back to you with our options and stuff like that. And I guess that's it, unless anyone's got a question.
Yeah, if anyone else has any questions, pop them in the box. If not, you're welcome to email either myself or Dr. Jason. We're happy to discuss anything that you'd like.
Yes, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
I've had my son on a low-carb diet, not as drastic as this, but just lowering the carbs because he was pre-diabetic. He has lost a lot of weight, about 35 pounds.
That's great.
Since last, I would say like November. I mean, he's lost quite a lot of weight. But my concern with this, I was interested in this for him, also for myself. But he does have always had high cholesterol, high triglycerides. I mean, really high, that he has to take special fenofibrate for to lower those triglycerides.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm concerned about the high fat portion of this diet. If this is something that.
So 2 things, I'll address that really quick for you because I know where you're going. So yeah, a lot of people worry about the fat. First of all, cholesterol is important in our brain and in our body. It's an important precursor to all our steroid hormones in the body. So we need some cholesterol. We don't want to be too crazy out of balance. So a ketogenic diet, if done properly with healthy fat sources, like we talked about, and good fat sources, will at the beginning bring your triglycerides and fat and cholesterol off, and then it will drop. So over time, you will actually improve your cholesterol panel. So you just got to understand over the first month or 2, it may be a little bit higher, and then it should drop back down. So don't be too concerned. Obviously, monitor and talk with your doctor about it. But from what we've seen, ketogenic diet over time, even with exogenous ketones if added in too, can also, again, you might see a small spike at the beginning, and we see everything kind of normalizing lower, especially when you stick to clean sources.
Well, is there, do dietitians deal with this diet? I mean, because I know he spoke to a dietitian about the diabetic diet, but they
here's what I'll say. Yeah.
I mean, he's on a lot higher carbs than what you're recommending.
Yeah. RDs are a lot more medically minded. They don't usually know how to even do this diet, or they may just tell you like, oh, it's bad for you. Fat's bad. You're better off looking for a nutritionist who's not necessarily an RD, or someone's a little more of a holistic health coach who is specialized in ketogenic diet. You just got to do some searches, and some will do it remotely. You don't necessarily have to be in person. But yeah, unfortunately, traditional RDs are a little bit stuck in the medical model, and their job is to deal with people with diabetes, and they're going to give you a diabetic diet, which is sort of ketogenic, but not really. And it kind of monitors, keeps your sugar okay, and keeps your insulin okay, but it's not really fixing any of your problems.
So I'm not exactly sure who's answering that, but just sent me an email and I can help you find someone.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Any questions that you want to have more information about where to find a practitioner or something like that, or try a product or something specific, feel free to email us and we'll get back to you.
For sure. Trevor, sort of what?
I don't know. Trevor said sort of something.
I'm not sure.
You said it was ketogenic. I was just kind of being sarcastic.
No, I hear you. It is. It's sort of ketogenic. It's not really ketogenic. Yeah, fat has been vilified for way too long, and we just got to really kind of take that back. Listen.
So can you review briefly what was the amount of protein, and it doesn't go by your body weight to start? I mean, how does that work?
Again, we'll try to get you at 20% of what your of all your food that day should be, protein, carbs, or calories wise. Calories or grams wise. But usually, if you do figure out your body fat percentages, and then to subtract that from your total weight, you'll know. Like, let's say you're 200 pounds and you have 25% body fat. 150 pounds of that is muscle or lean mass, we'll call it. And then you multiply that number by anywhere from 0.7 to 0.8.5. And that should be how many grams a day of protein you'll need to maintain or even build a little bit. So basically figure out, even if you just do your body weight.
Right now we've been doing like a lot of protein and, vegetables, and there are carbs involved, but low carb.
Right. And again, all vegetables are good, but I would stick to more, because there's healthy benefits to other besides just, in red and yellow and green, vegetables. The green vegetables are traditionally lower carb. Stay away from starchy vegetables like tubers. And I would just try to, bring the fat up more. And then you can maintain the protein probably.
And what about this? These fruits you said stay with low glycemic fruit.
Right. So anything has a lower glycemic
What would
load,
they
or
be?
so an
What
example of that. Hold on, let me grab my list here. It'll just be easier. So things like lemon, lime are pretty good. Apples aren't too bad. Apricots, like I said, berries, some melons. Again, it's all about dose dependent. I wouldn't go eat a whole watermelon, but a few grams of watermelon's fine. Cherries are pretty good. Grapefruit, citrus is not too bad. Guava is not too bad. Lemon, lime, nectarines, oranges, they're not bad. But again, it's also quantity. If you have half an orange versus 3 oranges, it's going to be a problem. So if you do a search for glycemic load, low glycemic load fruit online, you can find a bunch of good lists.
And what would the maximum amount? What would be considered a high? Like what would be the maximum amount of fruit?
Again, we want 20 grams total of carbs for the day. So you just got to figure out what fruit you're looking at, what the net carbs are on that thing, and then
20 grams of carbs for the day.
Yeah, 20 to 50 tops. Is what we want in the ketogenic diet. Again, this may not be for him or for you. I mean, again, like we said, it can be beneficial, but you need to, figure out what works for you best, and maybe have someone to coach you along with that.
And how much weight do you expect to lose on this?
Everyone's different, and try not to worry about pounds so much as inches, because what will happen is when you're fully in ketosis, you will burn fat and maintain or build muscle. So you may not see the scale move a lot, but you may see your body shift and redistribute fat and protein. And that's what's going to happen. Your body will change. You may lose inches more than you will lose fat. Not early on, but as you get further into it. Things like exogenous ketones may speed that up, and you may see a bigger change in just body mass, body breakdown than you what makeup, if you will, than just weight on the scale.
And what did you say about the exercise? Not to do it in the beginning?
Oh, no. There's no problem doing exercise at any point in there. Just be careful that early on, as your body gets accommodated to not using sugar and moving to fat, it can mess up. Your body may take a dive because it's like, all right, I'm not done burning sugar yet. I'm not ready to burn fat yet. So when I burn out, I don't have a lot of carbs coming in, and I have carbs. I mean, I exercise, I burn through my carbs pretty quickly. You may get some like lightheadedness or weakness. So, then you might want to add a little bit of carbs in right before or right during your workout.
All right. So are you supposed to space your meals out, or are you supposed to have snacks? Are you supposed to have anything in between?
No, and here's the thing. Again, once you're keto, we're not talking about sugar anymore. We're talking about fat. And when you're in a sugar-based paradigm, you have to eat a lot of little meals throughout the day to keep the spikes and valleys lower. When you're keto adapted, you eat when you're hungry, unless you do an intermittent fast where you eat through a certain part of the day. At the beginning, you might want to have smaller meals throughout the day to keep, as your body accommodates to burning sugar to burning fat. But in general, we want to sit to, as your body gets into ketosis and fat burning, you won't need to be hungry as much anymore. You just kind of eat when you're ready. You don't necessarily have to be eating all the time. It's a paradigm shift.
So we just had just one more question from Melissa. I just want to make sure we just get the chats. And then if anybody has like specific questions, like I said, just please feel free to email. Melissa wants to know, we talked about bulletproof coffee, and she actually heard that if weight loss is the goal, bulletproof coffee is not good because of the extra fat. So what's the myth? Like, does it help weight loss or hamper it? And is fat okay? Should they not be afraid of having fat?
Don't be afraid of fat. Again, high fat, high carb, you're going to gain weight. You have to just bring the carbs down. You can't bring the fat up without bringing the carbs down. That's it. So just be mindful that if you're going to have high fat, you better not be eating a ton of carbs with it. Otherwise, you will gain weight. But yeah, fat has been vilified for way too long. Listen, if fat and cholesterol were the reason why everyone was having heart disease and dying, then all the change we made in the 30 years with medicines and food, guess what would happen? We'd all be healthy. There'd be no more heart disease. Death from heart rate issues have not changed. It barely moved since the advent of all these low fat and cholesterol meds. So what's happening is you're dealing with the medicine. Even medical community talks about it. It's not about cholesterol. It's not about all being fats. We're vilifying these foods. So just understand, you need to basically increase your fat if you want to make this work.
Is that all good? Everyone's all,
You're welcome, Melissa.
we're all covered?
All right. So unless there's any like really pressing questions, what am I drinking? I will tell you what I'm drinking, and then you can ask me. I'm actually drinking. I drink. Sorry, I drink my ketones every day. That was the news, this chocolate max. But ask us offline. We'll tell you a little bit more about it.
Yeah, we didn't want to make that about this. Like, I genuinely am trying to learn.
Awesome, Ellen.
And want to help people because of, like I said, my incredible story and stuff like that. So, you know, obviously there's an interest here. So if you guys thought this was great or not so great, definitely send us feedback, because I definitely want to do this a lot more often. And hopefully once I'm finished my training, I'll be able to do it on my own.
There we go. Oh, she'll get rid of me. That's nice. Thanks.
No, you'll always be here for questions I won't be able to get.
All right, so everybody, thank you again for coming.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
We're going to sign off. I've enjoyed this so much. I'm pumped. Thank you so much. You're very welcome. You're very welcome, everyone.
Feel free to email
we really
us.
appreciate it. And yeah, and let us know. We're going to probably do this again in another week or two. So if you know what, you want to jump back on and hear the same, get the information reiterated, or you want to get some friends or family or loved ones on there, or just we'd love to share it out.
Yep.
All right,
guys. Have a
good
good
night, everyone.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.